My name is Mandy Froehlich. I am the Director of Professional Learning for Tech. That's a new position for me, which I'm super excited about. And in my other life, I'm a consultant and an author and Gabe's best friend and a mental health advocate. So that's really what I work on.
All right. So welcome back to the show, Mandy.
Yes.
I want to say this is like your third or fourth time.
Is it really? Is it that many? That's
First
awesome.
time we connected virtually, I want to say COVID, if not like pre-COVID. And then after that, it's funny. I was just having this conversation with my son yesterday. He was like, you've been to FETC for quite some time. It's always been in Florida. 22, New Orleans.
Yep, it was in New Orleans.
Yeah.
We did a podcast.
Yes,
there.
we did. Yes, we did.
In that loud area.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Well, welcome back to the show. Congratulations on the new position. Hold on one second. There we go. I knew I had it somewhere. All right. Congratulations on that new position. I know you've been consulting for quite some time, and I know I always point people in your direction. You might not know that it comes from my direction when it comes to visitors to your website or what have you, or your books. But when I think mental health, when I think wellness, and I think just taking care of yourself, I think Mandy.
Oh,
so I always
you.
send people in your way. So there's a term that you introduced to me kind of like pre-production, healing spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Using my context clues, I think I could figure it out. I think I'm a pretty good educator. Define the term learning spaces. What does that mean? I'm sorry, not learning spaces. That would not be good on my part if I didn't know what that was. Healing spaces.
Sure. So healing spaces, I mean, it's going to be kind of a long explanation or a definition, but really came into play when I talked about mental health and burnout with teachers and demoralization and things like that. And one of the things that I've realized over time, and like, I've been talking about mental health for about 10 years. And one thing I've realized is that it's really difficult for teachers to heal from things like burnout, demoralization, and like from their emotional disengagement when they're in a space that's causing those issues. And so we have kind of different levels of what's going on in schools. We have culture that's really kind of toxic and not great. And that's obviously going to be the most difficult to heal, space to heal in. Then we have probably more commonly just, like a decent culture. People are mostly happy, but they're tired and things like that. And I feel like that's always what people are aiming for, is they're aiming for that kind of like status quo, everything's fine. When in reality, we need to take it one step further, and we need to create spaces and cultures in our school that are conducive to healing. And so like, if we want people to heal, we need to give them the spaces to heal in. And it's not going to be helpful for teachers who are trying to heal to go into a space that's causing an issue, come back home at night and try to heal and practice self-care and do all the things that they're trying to do for that. And then the next day go right back into those toxic environments. So healing spaces is really, it's making sure that the culture in your school is supportive, that it's, and not just supportive in the way that, we make sure teachers have what they need in order to teach, but also emotionally supportive, that, people have people they can go to talk to, that our districts have free mental health services. Like it can really span a lot of areas. We need leadership that has people's backs. It's really a big cultural thing, a big cultural shift to make these healing spaces.
Yes. I'm glad that you touched upon, the free services and that, whether it be in the form of counseling or therapy or something along those lines with districts. Our district offers really good benefits for that.
That's
and,
great.
I personally am taking advantage of those. And it's not until you start that process that you realize this is good. I should have done this a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And it makes for an overall better experience for all parties, even connected, like that 6 degrees of separation or whatever.
Yeah.
Just healing oneself makes you a better person. It makes you a better partner. It makes you a better parent. It makes you a better educator, makes your students see you in a different light, makes you a better colleague. Mm-hmm. And it just has that ripple effect. In the opposite environment, all it takes is that one person in that break room, in that staff, workroom or what have you, the negative Nancy or the Debbie Downer or what have you. And it's just, they can take somebody who is not well equipped to just kind of keep things at bay and just 180-degree shift.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're in a sensitive area of healing where you're, still trying to kind of figure things out, but you're making progress, but sometimes healing, like, if you've, like you've said, you've gone through the process yourself, like it's, one step forward, two steps back. And sometimes, like, if those two steps back are always happening in schools where you work, that makes healing from those issues a lot more difficult. And I think healing in general is something that's really misunderstood from the standpoint of, it's not all like butterflies and daisies and happiness. Like, it's a lot of crying and being sad and trying to figure things out that have gone wrong in the past, and looking for patterns and trying to change your own behaviors so that you're a happier human. And that's a difficult process. So, understanding both like that, emotional disengagement from our work, like whether it be burnout or demoralization or secondary traumatic stress, like whatever it is, like understanding first that is something that you have to heal from. And then we have to provide people what they need in order to heal from that, because it's happening at work. That's a hard thing for people to wrap their mind around.
It's happening at work. It's caused by work. It's just a cyclical thing. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Now, a healing space, is that a physical space? Like, what does that look like at a campus or an organization for that matter?
I think it can be. Like, I've heard, of districts going in and kind of revamping their teachers' lounges to having everything from like, massage chair to, they'll have like headphones that you can go in and you can put on like meditative music or something like that. Like, I've heard that. So it can be. To me, healing spaces are more of a feeling. It's more of a cultural shift that everybody understands that our jobs are hard and that people need additional support besides instructional support. That needs to be emotional and it needs to be connection, and we need to feel comfortable in those spaces in order to be able to lean into the hard stuff and get through our days when we're already feeling not like ourselves.
Yeah. As I travel from campus to campus at a very large district, I see it. I mean, I think our district has mandated recharge areas. We have health services that will provide X amount of sessions for whatever you need. They've also taken any sort of like extra room and put some workout equipment in there and things like that. And it helps, because a lot of times when you're in the process of, when you're going through something or what have you, and you have 33 little ones in front of you, and you got to put on that fake smile, sometimes it weighs on you.
Yeah.
It weighs on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I even have there's so many facets to it. And it's, even from the standpoint of, we can say create healing spaces, like that's creating healing spaces. If it's not just like a physical space, like when we're talking about culture, like that's almost like its own kind of healing. Like you have to kind of heal the culture that's been there in order to create these spaces. And that's difficult in itself for people to wrap their mind around. But, but those little things, like giving teachers the opportunity, and like one of the sessions that I have at FETC this year is teaching while wired, which talks a lot about like
teaching while wired.
Yeah. Teaching while wired. So like being in a classroom with a lot of technology. Okay. And so now I thought
you said well wired.
Oh,
okay. Yeah.
Well, it could be that too.
Yeah.
But the like what's happening to our nervous systems when we're in a classroom constantly trying to keep up with technology, and the technology's not, like, we know tech isn't tech if it works all the time,
Boy.
So, what happens to our nervous systems when that's happening? What's happening to our nervous systems when we know Billy's constantly getting on that other website when he's supposed to be doing something else, and he's hiding in the corner and he's got his iPad to himself, and we're just praying to God that he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. Like, what's happening with our nervous systems?
And then you see the door open and an administrator walks in and you're like, oh gosh, not now.
Yeah, exactly. So, that is something too, like understanding our nervous systems and how they're working in those environments. And so sometimes, like in that case, you can have a really great environment, supportive environment, but it's still a play on our nervous system. So like, it's really about understanding where we're going to work and what that system looks like, and if it is conducive to healing, but then also understanding our own bodies and our own nervous systems and those types of things so that we can heal in the best way.
Now I have to ask you a question.
Yeah.
All right. If Mandy Froehlich opened her own campus, and you had everything that you're discussing. The culture of a healing space, a healing entity, a healing organization with the proper physical spaces. Talk us through what that would look like.
Sure.
In your perfect world.
Sure. In my perfect world. Okay.
Unlimited budget.
Oh my goodness. I think there would be, gosh, this could be an entire like podcast series. Love the idea of the physical space supporting the healing space. So I would love like, you know, I used to work at a school when I was a tech integrator that had a big, I don't even know what it's called. There's like it's like a middle space in the building that has trees and grass and like, can't think of what.
I know what you're talking about.
They called it something I can't, like a garden type thing in the middle.
But it was like the everything was kind of built around it.
Yeah, and there's like benches and stuff, and I think, you know, being able to go outside, take your shoes off, like ground actually in grass is a really important mindfulness thing. To be able to kind of calm your nervous system. So like I would love something like that. I love the idea of physical spaces where people can go and you know, have music that's playing, or even have you know, I think massage chairs are a little much, but I mean, like if I have unlimited budget, we're gonna have 10 massage chairs, man.
Okay. All right, so let's get bring on the
every
shiatsu.
corner. But like little things as well. It sounds kind of silly, but like free lunches for teachers. You know,
can you
like
imagine that?
Can you imagine not having to plan your lunch all week and just being able to go and
on
get
Sunday for hours?
Yeah. I mean, like little things like that. Also, you know, like the free and easy mental health services. So it's not only free, but in the school, there's somebody that you can go to at a time that's convenient to you, that you don't have to travel somewhere. If you want to do it on your lunch, you can. So there would be things like that. I also think finding that balance between, and I think this is so personal to a staff that it's kind of the leader's responsibility to be able to figure this out, but finding that balance between like team building and giving people what they need to do their jobs. You know, we had kind of a conversation. I don't know if you want to bring up what you were saying before with the social media, but finding that really great balance between understanding your people, understanding what they need, making sure that you're kind of hitting their support love language, you know, like that you understand how they need support and you're meeting that. So you do have that team building stuff because you do need it, but then also making sure that people have what they need to do their jobs and they're not going home and they're not reading, you know, having to do extra PD on their own just to try to figure out what it is that the district wants them to do.
Now, with that being said, let's exit that perfect world. Let's focus back on a reality. Let's get grounded, like you said.
Okay.
All right. What are maybe a couple of baby steps that are attainable that campus leadership, organizational leadership can take towards creating that healing space?
Sure. Well, and I do have a resource on my website.
Plug it.
I had kind of rebranded, for lack of a better term, into human sustainability. It really had been what I had been doing all along, but I just had been calling it mental health.
Yeah.
And so but I want to also make sure, because sometimes people get me mixed up with a therapist, and I'm not. I'm an advocate.
Yeah.
So
if you need real.
An actual therapist. Yeah. So I kind of rebranded into this human sustainability. So when I did that, I created some resources for districts that they can take a look at, and like, what does that mean when we're sustainable? There's a few different levels that they can take a look at. There's even a quiz they can take and find out kind of what level that they think that they are. Keeping in mind that usually leadership estimates people to be about 30% happier than they actually are in their schools or districts. So
can you say that again? Hold on. It took a while for my brain to wrap around that.
There have been studies done that says that leadership, and not just in education, but in general, will typically will rate their cultures and things about 30% higher than their actual people will.
Than reality.
Yeah, than reality.
Okay,
yeah.
So like I had it the other way around.
Yeah. So it's important when, you know, you go to take those types of quizzes and stuff that you're having teachers take them and things. But there's a quiz, and then there's these levels that you can take a look at. And basically they just take a look at everything from like your professional learning opportunities to access to mental health services, I wouldn't say that if somebody said to me, how do I create a healing space, that I would say, here's how you do it. But it's definitely a starting point to assess where your district is in creating an environment that does allow for people, like does allow for sustainable work and for people to feel better about their work.
Okay. All right. So you don't have to go out and spend an exuberant amount of money on trying to accomplish.
No. This is very much a cultural thing. I mean, like it can be part of your culture to have a space that is dedicated to something like that. But you can definitely start this without any money. Like, for example, taking a look at like the mental health resources that your district puts out, for example. And not, so many times I go into a district and I talk to people and they're like, well, we have mental health resources. They're on slide 43 of the HR, presentation that was put out at the beginning of the year that nobody ever looked at, And so like, how can we make, when we talk about mental health services mental health information being accessible, how can we make it so that we're like meeting people where they're at as far as how they consume information?
Yeah.
Is it easy to find? Is it timely? Like those types of things. So that's really about taking possibly what you already have in your HR stuff and revamping it to being something that's more meaningful for people that they can actually use and that they're going to access. So like that's a really easy, free way to start doing something like that. So there's that. A lot of a healing environment first falls on leadership because they need to create the cultures that are conducive to that. And a lot of that is understanding their people. I've done podcasts in the past about understanding, like we talk about love languages, and if your listeners are familiar with that, it's that everybody gives love in a certain way, everybody receives
Correct.
love in a certain way, and I believe now they actually have a book out on leadership love languages. They didn't when I first started talking about this, but I think there's one out now. But basically, it's kind of the same idea. Like, people receive support in a certain way and people give support in a certain way. And what I've found over time in working with districts is that you have a leader who gives support in a particular way, and the people who receive it that way are going to love that leader, or at least get along with them really well. The people who do not receive support in that way are going to feel like they're never supported. And so they're generally not going to like that leader. The leaders that are the most successful are the ones that know how their people feel supported, and then also can sort of adjust and move between the different types of support in order to make sure that those people are getting what they need.
A little more fluid. Just bobbing in and out, weaving.
Yep. And aren't so stuck in one area. And I often kind of give this, I might have said it on a podcast before, but I give this example of, I had this really great mentor at one point, and this idea was percolating in my head about like how people feel supported. And I said, how do you feel supported? Like if you have a leader? And he said, well, I feel supported when there's really clear communication. And I was like, okay, well, that doesn't I don't really care about communication because I can find things out if I want to, so like, okay, and I said, that's interesting because I feel supported when leadership has my back, that I know that if I try something innovative, I try something new, or I, God forbid, screw up, that my leader's not, bounding in my classroom, telling me that I did something wrong, that they have my back in what I am. And they're like coaching me through it instead. Like, that's how I feel supported. And he's like, yeah, I don't really care. So like in that example,
just two completely different.
Yeah, two completely different.
Okay.
So like if we had a leader that was like a really amazing communicator, but didn't really care about having people's back so much, I wouldn't feel supported, but he would. And that leadership support is so incredibly important when we talk about culture, and especially in healing spaces, because if you don't feel safe enough to feel supported in your work, how are you going to feel safe enough to feel supported in your mental health? So that piece of it is really, really important. And I don't want to put it all on leadership, because it's really important for people to understand also that leadership is typically one person. It's usually a principal, vice principal, like maybe a couple people. And when I've said to people in the past, if you don't feel supported, how would you feel supported? 90% of people cannot tell me that. So it's really important for you to also understand how you feel supported, so that you can voice that and tell your leader, I would feel supportive if you would do.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's just at that point, it's kind of like nitpicking everything that they do. And maybe I just don't like you as a person. Regardless of what you do to quote unquote support me, I'm going to push back and say, no, I don't feel supported. And like you said,
right.
Well, how would you feel supported? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
And so if you can, my thing is always kind of like, if I tell you something and I'm very specific and clear about what I'm saying and you still don't do it, then we know it's a problem. Yeah. But if I never tell you, how are you supposed to know? Like, none of us are mind readers,
Correct.
And like, if anyone's married, they've probably gone through the same thing, right?
I was just assuming that you were.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what they say about people who assume. So it's not all on leadership. I do think leaders drive a culture in a school, but leaders need to understand their people, but people need to understand themselves as well in order to be able to communicate that. So, I mean, there's so many facets of the healing spaces, and it takes time to switch over, especially if you're coming from a really toxic.
If there's one thing that you're listening, if you're listening or watching, and there's one thing that you're possibly thinking about, here's what I would like for you to answer. What can people do? What can your building administration do to make you feel supported? I'm pretty sure you have a good idea. If not, you have no idea. And that's a good place to start to see. Yeah. Okay. I obviously have kind of bobbed in and out and weaved in and out in my head of how I think I feel supported. And also through my journey doing different things, it might have changed.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. No. It has changed.
And different experiences
with different people.
Yeah.
Yeah. With different leaders. Okay. You've given me a lot to think about. Yeah.
And thinking about.
Barely 9:30. I'm already, my brain's going.
I haven't even had coffee this morning yet.
I know.
But figuring out how you do feel supported, like, that's not an easy task.
No.
Like, it's not. You think at first you're like, oh, well, I would feel supportive if I don't know.
Yeah.
You have to kind of think about it. But yeah, because you have to think about, like, what is it that kind of, I don't want to use the term fills your cup, but like, when I feel really supported by leadership, especially if I screw up or something like that, and they're helping me through that, like, I get like this, like, I don't know if it's pride or like appreciation, maybe feeling in my chest.
It could be all of them.
Yeah. It's like a good feeling. Like, you're like, somebody's got my back. Like, that's amazing.
It's almost like a weight lifted off your shoulder that you didn't know was there until they told you that and took it off.
Yep, exactly. So, like, especially if you're already in a place of burnout or something like that, like, a lot of times you're numbing or you're doing stuff that, you've kind of emotionally disengaged to protect yourself. So you have to try to remember, what is that thing that makes you feel that appreciation or that pride or that, like, I want to work for this person because they're amazing. Like, what is it that makes you feel that way? And then you have to try and determine, like, what was that support exactly? Like, what was I getting? Like? Yeah. It's not an easy task for sure.
And how am I going to pay that forward to make sure that people I interact with, AKA my students, my coaches, or anyone else who I work with, can also feel the same way about me? Yeah,
absolutely.
Full circle.
Oh, that was amazing.
I didn't even have coffee. Gosh. All right. Well, how do people connect with you to learn more?
So on Twitter, I'm FROEHLICHM, and then you can go to mandyfroehlich.com. Make sure you don't if you search me, I know there's another, and I have to say it all the time. She does Pilates. I'm not the Pilates girl. I give her all the credit. She does amazing Pilates, but I'm not her. So it's just mandyfroehlich.com, no dash in between.
All right. Sounds good. Best meal. Well, we've only been here one day, but you did say you had a really good meal.
It was actually at a social, like, it was the Instant IQ social at the Galaxy Bowl at the Cabana Hotel or something. They had just a really great layout. But my favorite restaurant here is the Chocolate Emporium. over in Universal City Walk?
We passed it because we did Universal all day yesterday.
Okay.
My wife and kids are here.
That's amazing.
And we walked by as we were exiting the park, like almost 10 o'clock.
Yeah, it is to die for.
Really,
food is good, and their desserts. Like you go for lunch and you have food, and then you go like hours later for their desserts because it's like another meal.
Really?
Yeah, it's like sundaes with brownies on top and like piled kind of like they do the Bloody Marys with like the only it's Sundays instead.
I'm going to have to cancel all my episodes for the rest of the day and just head over there. All right. That's good to know. Great. I appreciate that. Well, thank you very much, Mandy. I want to tip my hat to you and thank you for everything that you contribute to our educational space, everything you do for our educators, ultimately our students, and just for being you. Well,
thank you so very much. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate
Thank you again. And I look forward to chatting with you in the future again on the show. So
sounds good.
Have a good rest of the conference.
Thanks. You too.